High school is a ruthless world, and it is usually looks that dictates if you survive. Young Sok is an ugly, overweight student who is the subject of brutal bullying. After a video of him being beat up is uploaded online, he becomes ridiculed nearly nationwide, effectively killing his social life. When he suddenly gains a smoking hot bond, he decides it is his turn to experience popularity. But he has to balance living a double life, careful not to let a secret out. Young Sok is bullied at school for being ugly and overweight. He has no friends or allies at school. The slightest misunderstanding gets him pushed. He takes this out on his mother, who he thinks does not understand him after two bullies, Taesong and Mezikbet, and who can hit his head with a football first. His mother suddenly rushes to defend him. But this has the opposite effect, and he's viewed as a tattletale who has to run to his mother. High school is a ruthless world, and it is usually looks that dictates if you survive. Young Sok is an ugly, overweight student who is the subject of brutal bullying. After a video of him being beat up is uploaded online, he becomes ridiculed nearly nationwide, effectively killing his social life. When he suddenly gains a smoking hot bond, he decides it is his turn to experience popularity. But he has to balance living a double life, careful not to let a secret out. Young Sok is bullied at school for being ugly and overweight. He has no friends or allies at school. The slightest misunderstanding gets him pushed. He takes this out on his mother, who he thinks does not understand him after two bullies, Taesong and Mezikbet, and who can hit his head with a football first. His mother suddenly rushes to defend him. But this has the opposite effect, and he's viewed as a tattletale who has to run to his mother. Videos of his humiliation is uploaded online, and his social life is effectively destroyed before it even began. He cries himself to sleep, but he suddenly wakes up in a brand new Hollywood, A-list actor body.
He sees his old body lying on the floor and considers contacting the hospital, but he decides to use this new self to start a completely new life. When he attends J1 Vocational High School the next day, he quickly becomes the talk of the town, and women swoon all over him. This time, it's his turn to be popular. As Young Sok takes his seat, he's chagrined to learn he's seatmates with Jin Sung, the same guy who gave him a beating the day before. Han Yul, the class Madonna, instantly tries flirting with him, which the rest of the girls expected she'd do. During lunch, Han Yul cozies up to Young Sok and asks why he took up fashion design in their vocational school. In truth, it was the only course available to him with his attendance and grades, but he lies and says he finds fashion design interesting. The next day, Young Sok is exhausted from the day before, having spent the entire day testing the physical limits of his body. He learns that it is a near-perfect physical specimen, boasting increased strength and stamina, but when he falls asleep, he wakes up in his old body. He manages to get a part-time job for his old self at a local convenience store, using his hot body's charisma and charm. The manager initially does not want to hire the fat Young Sok, but he impresses him with his familiarity with cigarette brands. One evening, Jin Sung and his goons attempt to purchase alcohol despite being underage. When Young Sok refuses to take their fake ID, Jin Sung recognizes him as the fat guy he beat up the other day. He gets irritated when he recognizes his name and begins beating him up again, taking a naked photo of him as insurance. Later, his mother gives him a call and asks how he's doing, and he says that everything is going great. The next day, Jin Sung shows photos of the fat Young Sok to some of his classmates. They begin making fun of him for being overweight, but when hot Young Sok overhears them badmouth his mother, he speaks up. Jin Sung does not take idly to this and challenges him to a fight. A crowd begins to gather around them, and Jin Sung wants to impress Mi-jin, whom he likes. Although Jin Sung is famous for his fast punches, Young Sok has been bullied since he could walk. Now that he's in a body that can react to punches, he effortlessly dodges Jin Sung's attacks, humiliating him and knocking him out with a single punch. Rumors of his attractiveness and victory over Jin Sung spread among the other cliques, and they paint a target on this young upstart's back. A boy named Jiho steals a cell phone charger while Young Sok is on the job. He chases after him into an alley, revealing that Jiho was coerced into stealing it by 3 bullies: Hanjeol, Youngdu, and Ji-sok. Upon seeing Young Sok, they force him and Jiho to fight, offering to release Jiho from his status as a gopher if he wins, but they are interrupted by Basco, the leader of the Burning Knuckle Gang. He intimidates the 3 bullies into fleeing, before telling Jiho to make sure Young Sok stays out of trouble, and he begins to tear up. The next day, Hanyul tries getting closer with Young Sok again. When Young Sok calls out to Basco as he enters the cafeteria, he interprets this as an act of hostility and attempts to subdue him with his famed bare-knuckle grip. Although said to be impossible to break from, Young Sok wrestles free with a single hand. Bum-jae, the gang's second-in-command, puts a stop to the confrontation, which he later comments is not out of Young Sok's safety, but for Basco's. Young Sok's fame only grows because of this, and impressed by his strength, Hanjeol, Hyungdo, and Jisuk invites him out for drinks. That night, they are joined by Hanyul and Jinsung, which makes him even more nervous. When they ask him about his living situation, they misunderstand his living with a friend who works at night as extremely dangerous criminal. Youngsuk comments that Jinsung and Mijin look like a couple, causing him to become very friendly. They begin making fun of the video they took of Youngsuk and Jiho fighting, and in a drunken rage, Youngsuk destroys their phone, but passes out soon after. He awakens in his old body and he races back to the restaurant, introducing himself as a friend of Youngsuk's roommate. As they leave the party, Youngsuk drags out his odd body into an alleyway. They pass by a punching game and Jinsung teaches Youngsuk how to punch. As he does, he tells Youngsuk not to get himself beat up again. Left alone, Youngsuk attempts to throw the punch just as he was taught, but he simply grazes it. Basco happens upon the game just as Youngsuk leaves, and he's shocked to see that the cushion ripped apart by his punch. The next day, Youngsuk befriends and eats with Jiho, which is seen as a bizarre combination. Meanwhile, his mother visits his apartment and is confused to see her son sleeping and not at school. Youngsuk comes to see his mother there and explains he's a friend of her son's. She's concerned that he took up a night job and asks if Youngsuk has got some time to talk. He takes her out to a Starbucks, which can't seem to turn off his chick magnet. She's shocked by the exorbitant prices, having only lived on instant coffee her entire life. She asks if her son is being bullied at school since she had always been busy working to make ends meet to notice. He reassures her that he isn't and that he has made wonderful friends. He thanks him for being a great friend to her son and gets up to leave. Meanwhile, Basco overhears their entire conversation, misunderstands the entire context, and assumes that hot Youngsuk is bullying the fat Youngsuk. Youngsuk helps his mother tie up some used cardboard that she plans to sell for scraps. She reveals that she took up a second job and asks him not to tell her son about it. Basco sees this and assumes that Youngsuk is also committing extortion, and as soon as she leaves, he pulls Youngsuk aside. Because both refuse to properly talk or understand one another, they end up having a fistfight. Basco takes up a stance reminiscent of Muay Thai, and his brutal strikes manage to bend even metal. Youngsuk realizes he might die if he gets hit, so he decides to fight back. He throws a right straight just as he was trained, but Basco dodges it, only to be hit by a spinning elbow, knocking him out completely. Youngsuk entrusts an unconscious Basco to Bumjae. The next evening, Basco approaches fat Youngsuk and apologizes that he couldn't get the money back. He encourages him to train and says that he's strong, recalling how Youngsuk tore apart the punching cushion. Youngsuk begins to train in the convenience store, and a beautiful customer buys him a protein drink and encouragement. Jae-yeol, another student in the fashion department, looks over the rest of the city. Nam-soo, a preppy student, flaunts his expensive new sneakers, but this attracts the attention of Jinsung and his gang. Strangely, Jinsung lets him go without a fuss, and his friends comment that he's mellowed down lately. Nam-soo attempts to show off an expensive chrome ring, but he's completely overshadowed by Jae-yeol, a quiet but extremely wealthy student clad from head to toe in expensive designer apparel. In comparison, Nam-soo observes that Youngsuk's outfit is in tatters, and the girls only ignore it because he's so good looking. Meanwhile, Burning Knuckle is left without their leader after Basco is absent. Bumjae tries to interpret his gibberish text and announces to the gang that they are to lay low for now. Later, Youngsuk saves Dakua from being bullied by Hobin, but he is ungrateful. While on the phone with his mother, Jae-yeol overhears that it is his birthday the next day. Later, he sees the office lady again, who continues to encourage him to work out. The next day, Dakua expresses distrust at how nice Youngsuk is acting towards him and Jiho. Two groups plot Youngsuk's downfall. A group led by Nam-soo, who has grown resentful over how much attention he has been getting, and Yira, a radical member of the Burning Knuckle who wants to pay him back for beating their boss, Basco. But Jae-yeol has noted Youngsuk's kindness after observing him over the past few days. The next day, Jae-yeol gifts Youngsuk on his birthday with duffel bags stuffed with designer clothes. In the process, he also takes care of Yira and his goons. The following day, Nam-soo plans to embarrass Youngsuk's raggy clothes, but they're stunned when he walks in fully equipped with the latest trends in designer fashion, making the girls swoon over him even more. When Hanyul asks him where he got his outfit from, Youngsuk glances at Jae-yeol and replies that he got it from a friend. Meanwhile, Dakua prepares rap lyrics for an audition based on his everyday experiences. He thinks of Youngsuk, who he says has a fake smile. Dakua is prevented from auditioning after the producer sees his appearance and instead signs Ho-bin, one of his bullies. The frustration seeps into his lyrics as he continues to be scorned and whispered about from those around him. The next day, he sees a poster from Jaewon's talent show. After being kicked around by Jinho, he decides to enter. When he arrives home to his grandmother's tteokbokki stall, Ho-bin and his confidants arrive as well. They pretend to be Dakua's friends and take advantage of her hospitality, although they compliment her cooking. But the next day, they spread rumors about her tteokbokki stall being disgusting. adding to Dakua's anger. Later, Hobin discovers Dakua's talent show application and publicly humiliates him in the cafeteria. Unable to watch any longer, Young-suk confronts him and an unlikely ally in Jin-sung. Startlingly, Basco and the Burning Knuckle gang back him up, forcing Hobin to drop the subject and leave. Basco tries to start another fight with Young-suk, but Bum J pulls him away. Young-suk finds Dakua's torn talent show application and keeps it. The next day, he tries to give it back to Dakua, but he's still distrustful of him, suspecting he's only nice so that he can become more popular. He strives to be like Eminem, a rapper from humble and tumultuous beginnings. However, Hobin finds him writing his lyrics again and rips it up in front of his eyes. Meanwhile, Hanyul asks Young-suk if he plans to enter at the talent show, but he says it is not for him. He tries practicing his singing again while he was alone, which has always been a hobby of his. Dakua hears his voice and invites him to sing together at the talent show. Dakua invites Young-suk into his home and is initially worried that he might find it disgusting, but the two bond over their mutually poor upbringing, as well as their guardian's use of newspapers. Dakua plays an updated rendition of Young-suk's song, and he hopes that with his singing and his rapping, they can take the talent show by storm. Young-suk is impressed by Dakua's talents, and the two continue to bond. They encounter Dakua's grandmother, and Young-suk's respect for her catches Dakua off guard. Meanwhile, Hobin's record label gives him a song written by a world-class songwriter and composer to perform at the school festival. Young-suk and Dakua begin practicing their song, and Jiho's jaw drops at how good they are. That night, Young-suk manages to continue practicing in his other body, allowing him to do so without fatigue. The girl from the past nights notices his pleasant singing voice and treats him to a throat lozenge. Their practice is progressing smoothly, and Dakua thinks Young-suk must be some kind of genius for being able to pick up on musical sense so quickly. However, Hobin later pulls Dakua and Jiho into an alleyway to beat them up, for other reason than thinking they're annoying for trying so hard to compete at the talent show. Jiho is nearly forced into beating up Dakua, but Hobin is called away by his record label. The pair meet with a fat Young-suk and they bond over their mutual bullying experiences, even competing over who had it worst. But they share that ever since the good-looking Young-suk joined their school, their lives had improved. Basco overhears them and confirms for himself that Young-suk is actually a good person, and realizes that he had been mistaken all along. The next day, Young-suk and Dakua finalize the last arrangements of their song, and they are certain it will be a big hit. Meanwhile, Hobin looks over the performance list and realizes that those two will be going last. He hopes to crush their hopes and dreams once and for all. On the day of the festival, the girl who had always been visiting Young-suk at the convenience store, So-jung, visits along with Jong-geon, her bodyguard. While making final preparations with Dakua, Young-suk sees and chases after her into a parking lot, but he had forgotten that this is their first time meeting with him in his hot body. Soo-jung rebuffs him, writing him off as another shallow playboy. When Young-suk persists, Jong-geon grips him to shut him down. Shockingly, he manages to break free from his grip, but Jong-geon is a professional trained fighter, and he mops the floor with Young-suk. Basco arrives, declaring himself to be Young-suk's friend. He takes the full force of Jong-geon's punch, but he asks him to remove his glasses, because he refuses to fight people wearing them. When he does, Jong-geon is revealed to have jet black eyes. Before they can fight, So-jung persuades Jong-geon to drop it. Afterwards, the two sit by a bench and share a cup of milk together. But Young-suk overhears that the talent show is about to begin. He rushes backstage to meet Dakua, and they wear clothes loaned to them by Jae-yeol. Hobin and his friend perform on stage, and Dakua notices that their song is unusually polished, causing him to suspect it was written by a professional. When the song ends, Hobin gives Dakua a punch in the gut, but he retorts that he'll return the favor through the power of song. Once on stage, the MC pokes fun at how different the two look from each other. When the music begins to play, Young-suk freezes up from stage fright, but Dakua picks up the slack and begins his rap verse right away, easing his tensions. The two perform the song, reminding themselves of the roots of the lyrics, their harsh upbringing, and struggles of their daily lives. The song is met with thunderous applause. Impressing even the director of the record label that signed Hobin. When the song ends, the students acclaim the duo's musical prowess, and even Dakua's rapping is praised. Afterwards, the record label offers to sign Young-suk, not Dakua, but he turns them down. Later, Young-suk, Dakua, and Jiho gather outside the convenience store to watch a video of their performance, which has immediately gone viral. Although disappointed he was not considered for the label, they remark that while they were on stage, their looks did not matter, only their voice. The video is seen by DG, a famous performer, and So-jung, who's revealed to also have a twin body she can transfer her consciousness into. Days pass, and Young-suk has adapted well into his double life, making friends on both sides and continuing to improve himself bit by bit. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.